everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So the next video that we're going to be doing is all about how to support your teen with low mood with Calm My Mind today. So it's lovely to meet you all. Thank you everyone for joining us. So my name is Hayley and this is my colleague Emma.
Hi everyone.
And we are both mental health and wellbeing practitioners in the young people's team here at Calm My Mind. So today we're going to start off our video session just by explaining a little bit about who we are, what our organisation does, and then we're going to jump into the topic of low mood. So we're going to think about what is low mood, what might cause it, so what might be some of the kind of triggering events that might cause low mood for people, thinking about what might be some of those signs and symptoms, so what might it look like for individual people. We're going to discuss kind of how to approach having that kind of difficult conversation with your teenager. Then we're going to jump into some coping and relaxation strategies. And then we've got some tips on how to support your young person, how to support yourself as well, because obviously this is a difficult time for everybody involved, not just for the teenager, but for yourself as parents and guardians. And then we're going to finish with some further signposting and support. And yes, we hope you enjoy our session today.
Okay, so just to quickly introduce ourselves, Calm My Mind, and what we do. So we are a mental health organisation and charity, and we provide mental health support for both young people and adults from the age of 11 upwards. And that support can include a variety of either one-to-one or group support. So it could be a private counselling service, which is for those aged 14 upwards, and that's £50 per session as a cost. And then there's some 2 free services. So there are supported self-help, which is a guided support service that focuses on looking at strategies to understand and manage any potentially difficult thoughts and feelings that someone might be experiencing, such as anxiety, low mood, low self-esteem, anger, and grief and bereavement. We also offer the free service of support calls, and that can be regular check-in calls with a practitioner to check in with the person's well-being and also to support them to work towards a goal that they set. And both of those services can take place either in a local family centre. We have started going to schools for young people as well, local secondary schools. It could be also face-to-face in our office in Abergele, or it could be over the phone or by online video call as well. And we also offer group support such as coffee mornings and wellbeing walks as well in the local area, which could be along Conwy Mountain or along the promenade in Llandudno, so to meet a range of abilities.
So for today's video, we just want to start off really by asking people, to look after yourself today. Obviously, this can be a really difficult topic for a lot of people. Anything to do with mental health in our children can be especially difficult when we have that role as parent and guardians. So just a little reminder to look after yourself, take a break if needed. If you ever want to get in touch with us, if you've got any questions or any feedback after today's video, then yes, please do. As with all of the work that we do, we want to create a really caring and supportive and compassionate environment. So today, though, there will never be any sense of judgment from us. We're not here to evaluate anybody's parenting skills or techniques or choices that they make with their children. So like we say, please just look after yourself the best that you possibly can. And if you need us, we're here for you. Please just reach out to us. All of our details are in the description box. And when we get to the end of this video as well, there will be all of our contact details there too.
Okay, so to jump into the topic of the information session, the webinar. So to open the question to you all, so what is low mood? Kind of knowing what you know now and what you're aware of, what do you think low mood means? What does that phrase mean? What does it bring to mind? We do invite you here to pause the recording, the video, if you'd like to, just to have a bit of a reflection time by yourself, for as long as you need to have a think about an answer to that question if you'd like to. And just consider, what does that mean to you? And also, another prompt or question could be, is low mood different to depression? Or maybe is there a length of time that means low mood turns into depression? Just a few questions. You absolutely don't have to, but we do invite you here if you'd like to pause the video and just have a bit of space to reflect. And And just to provide a bit of an definition about what low mood is. So it is really a really normal thing to sometimes feel down. Everyone will experience it at some point in their life. However, generally, a low mood will pass after, say, a few days, a few weeks. Maybe you feel maybe a bit of nervousness or anxiousness, but generally, it's that sense of feeling and ever feeling a bit down or something's just not quite right. But generally, that it tends to pass after a brief period of time. However, if you notice that maybe it's lasting a bit longer this time, or maybe it keeps coming back, maybe frequently, or keeps coming back after so long, and maybe affects your day-to-day functioning. Perhaps it may be also experiencing additional things such as you're not enjoying things in life that you used to. Maybe just you feel there's no hope for the future. There's just nothing to look forward to, nothing positive. If that comes alongside those feelings as well, then it may be that maybe veering more towards the depression side, and maybe it might be at that point you consider just thinking about what's happening for you, and is it time maybe to look for some advice or seek some support perhaps. And the NHS do also provide a definition which says that depression is a low mood that can last a long time or keep returning, affecting your everyday life. So again, it's just the idea if it's keeps returning or affects your day-to-day functioning ability, and it's actually after just that sense of, if anything beyond 2 weeks of experiencing low mood, has been said to be considered towards depression. So it's that idea of looking at kind of functioning day to day, the length of time, and if the cause is it potentially caused by maybe any other conditions, maybe physical health condition as well, that may be influencing things. So in terms of what may cause low mood, I mean, absolutely, it's not to say that this is an exhaustive list and this is what will happen for everyone. This is just some general idea and examples of what may trigger people to experience these thoughts and feelings. So there's certainly a few aspects that could influence how someone's well-being. So it could be school pressure. So it may be academically, perhaps maybe exams or coursework coming up, and even moving up in those milestone years, moving up throughout education and throughout the years, and everything that comes along with that, perhaps increased responsibility. And also socially as well, maybe it's a new school, a new people, new environment, new teachers, and a different setting and higher expectations in a secondary school, of kind of increased workload. So that general idea of school pressure. Also physical changes. So it's certainly a time throughout adolescence and teen years, that sense of bodily, physical changes, hormonal changes, which can, and witnessing your peers experiencing that as well, and all going through that different stages and different times and how it might feel for each other. And how that affects your emotions as well, and managing that change in how you're feeling as well because of that. It could be maybe any life events or changes that have happened. It might be you've moved from your childhood home, moved location, or maybe it's parental separation or divorce or something, or a family argument that's happened. So just maybe changes that have happened in life. And certainly there could be an aspect of trauma that's happened, perhaps a sudden bereavement, or traumatic bereavement, or maybe there's a car accident, maybe you witnessed something, an accident, just something distressing or traumatic situation that may have suddenly happened. Another idea is genetic predisposition, I apologise. So it is said that perhaps there is an idea of how genetics and brain chemistry and how that may influence a person's risk or vulnerability of experiencing these types of emotions. And it is suggested, research has said, that if there's a family with a history of, say, low mood and depression, they may be more vulnerable to experiencing or both struggling with these types of thoughts and feelings. But however, it is said that we don't, it isn't clear if that's because of, if it is because of genetics, or if it's actually because maybe we haven't learned how to cope with those thoughts and feelings for whatever reason. So it's not clear if what may be the reason for that. And just to share a quote from the Mind website, so in terms of brain chemistry, because antidepressants work by changing brain chemistry, some people have assumed that depression is caused by changes in the brain chemistry, which are then corrected by the drugs. So some doctors may tell you that you have a chemical imbalance and need medication to correct it. But actually the evidence is for this is very weak. And if changes to brain chemistry occur, we don't know whether these are the result of depression or its cause. So although it may be a factor, the general consensus is it's not clear what that influence may be. But we wanted to highlight that as a potential aspect that may be possible. And to continue with the list on the screen. So yeah, there is relationships, whether that's developing new relationships, meeting new friends, or whether it's losing friends, changing friendship group from say primary school to secondary school, maybe developing a new romantic relationship. And also along with the school environments and social media perhaps, things such as bullying and peer pressure, that sense of wanting to belong and fit in, which may be even more heightened in that time of adolescence and teen years, when we're in that period of discovering who we are, our beliefs, our values, and what we want to do and who we are. And finally, there actually may not be an obvious or clear reason why we're feeling as we are. And we just know that something doesn't feel quite right and feels a bit different. And no matter if it is any of those or something else, it's complete, as we said earlier on, it's completely normal to feel low sometimes. It's absolutely okay, and whatever has caused that is absolutely individual and is okay for you. It's that's how it is for you, and it's absolutely okay.
So thinking now about what some of the possible signs and symptoms of low mood might be. Again, we would invite you here, if you'd like to pause the video, have a little bit of reflection time for yourself to think about, what do you feel might be some of the signs and symptoms of low mood? So again, this is by no means a exhaustive list. This is just the kind of things that we tend to come across in the line of work that we do working with teenagers. So the main kind of sign and symptom that you might find is feeling sad or on edge a lot of the time. So whilst we have a kind of multitude of different emotions during the day, we might find that that feeling of sadness is becoming really pertinent. It's starting to happen more and more often. Finding it hard to enjoy things that we would normally really enjoy doing. So this might be when we start to see teenagers, who previously have loved going to dance club or football club, all of a sudden they're not wanting to do that anymore. And they might be withdrawing from spending time with their family and friends. They might want to be spending more time on their own. So just those things that they would normally do in their day-to-day life, things like that can become really, really difficult. Leading on from that, feeling like it takes a huge effort to do even simple things. So from the outside looking in, it might seem as though getting out of bed, having a shower, getting ready for school in the morning is just part and parcel of our regular morning routine. But if somebody is struggling with low mood and depression, that drive to get out of bed has been completely drained from us, and it's going to take a huge amount of effort to do something as simple as just getting ready for school in the morning. So just taking that into consideration when we are working with teenagers who might be feeling like all of their motivation has been drained from them. Feeling like nothing is worth doing. So that sense of, I've got no push, I've got no drive to want to do anything. Finding it hard to concentrate or to make decisions. So again, something that on the surface we might see as a really easy decision, what do you want to have for your tea tonight? That can feel like a huge, overwhelming question when somebody is really in the depths of low mood and depression. So that sign of kind of finding it really difficult to focus, really hard to make any kind of a decision. Sometimes it feels like something is wrong, but we just don't know what. We can't pinpoint exactly what it is that doesn't feel right at the moment. We just know that I don't feel like my normal self. I don't feel happy. I don't feel like I have the normal energy and the normal drive that I would have. And in some ways that can be additionally difficult because if we can clearly pinpoint and say, oh, this is the thing that is making me feel this way, it can make it easier to understand and we can rationalize it a little bit better. But when things are, really woolly and it's like, I feel wrong, but I'm not really sure why, I can't really pinpoint exactly what's happening, that in itself can cause more anxiety because we start worrying about why do I feel this way? What do I actually feel? I can't find the right words. So that feeling of something's wrong, but I don't know what, can actually keep that spiral going. We might also notice that there are changes in how much we sleep or eat. So that could be eating a lot more, that could be eating a lot less, it could be eating different types of food, eating at different times in the day than we normally would. We might feel really hungry, but just not able to eat. We might have tummy aches, we might have like a bit of a nervous tummy ache sometimes. And we can sometimes notice big changes in our sleep routine as well. So whether that is napping a lot more than we would normally, um, finding it hard to get to sleep at night, or getting to sleep fine, but then waking up lots during the night. Sometimes, especially for teenagers, they might see really big changes in their sleep routines. So it could be not going to sleep until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. The alarm goes off for school and it's just so hard to get moving. So just being aware of those changes that might happen in our day-to-day routines. And again, kind of as we were saying earlier, those physical pains, so maybe having that bit of a nervous tummy ache, having a headache, feeling lots of tension maybe here between our eyebrows. If we're kind of bunching our shoulders up, we might be getting a bit of a sore neck. If we're not sleeping very well either, we might just feel really groggy during the day. We just don't really feel like we're quite here. We might be feeling a bit dizzy, a bit woozy. So really here, what we are getting at is changes in our regular normal routine. So if we've got somebody who normally eats, 3 meals a day, they're normally pretty set in their sleep routine, and all of a sudden they're starting to have little changes. They're not eating as well as they normally would. They don't really want to go out with their mates anymore. They don't really want to go out for tea. Those changes to their normal behavior might be a sign that something is maybe going on below the surface. And again, that sense of something going on below the surface. So this is a nice little activity that we do sometimes when we're working with teenagers. And this is called an iceberg activity. And the aim of doing this kind of activity is to help people to understand that with things like low mood and depression, what we see on the outside can sometimes really mask and really hide what's actually happening below the surface. And so it can be really interesting and really helpful to think about, okay, what does everybody see of me? But what's actually going on beneath the surface? So sometimes we'll ask people, how does it look from the outside? So we might be thinking our teenagers are being really grumpy, really lazy, a bit moody. They might be feeling a bit aggressive, a bit tetchy. They might be, snapping at the littlest thing, really disinterested. So, you might offer to take them out for tea one night, or you might offer to go out for the day, and they're just really not bothered. And you might think, gosh, they're, really ungrateful, or they're really disinterested. And that's kind of what comes across on the surface of the iceberg. But below the surface, what's really going on for that person is they're feeling really scared. They're lost. They're feeling confused because their bodies are changing, their minds are changing, their emotions are changing. They're feeling things that they can't understand. They're feeling things that they can't rationalize. They might be feeling really sad and just really drained of any emotion and any happiness right now. They might be feeling frustrated either at you as a parent and guardian, or they might be feeling frustrated at themselves. Like, why can't I just kick myself out of this? Why can't I just get moving? Why can't I get out of bed in the morning? So they might be feeling really annoyed at themselves. There might be a sense of trauma there as well. They might be having memories of things that have happened in the past that keep on coming back and replaying. They might be struggling with stress, especially if it's school related. We might have exams on the horizon. There could be big changes at home. So all of those things that we know as adults that they cause stress for ourselves, but sometimes we don't always recognize that it causes just as much stress for our teenagers and our young people as well. They might be struggling with really low confidence, and chances are they're exhausted, whether that's physically, emotionally, mentally, they're just so drained. And all of these feelings and these experiences on the bottom might manifest in the things that are on the top of the iceberg. So they might manifest as being really grumpy, really moody. And it's hard as a parent when we are on the receiving end of all of those really difficult behaviors and those difficult mood swings. And sometimes we just need to take a little step back and just remember that whatever we're seeing on the top of the iceberg, chances are there's a lot more going on down below that we really need to be considering as well. But just to say here that even though, we've given some examples of what might cause or trigger low mood, we've given some examples of how it might manifest, what some of the signs and symptoms might be. Just that little reminder that, it's completely personal. So what causes it, how it looks, how somebody copes with it will be different for absolutely everyone. And that can be really difficult as well because we might have quite a set idea of what low mood and depression looks like. And the reality might look really different. So just that little reminder that everybody is individual. And even if we ourselves have struggled with low mood and depression, it will be very different for the children and the young people in our lives. So just recognizing that whilst we as adults might bring a wealth of experience to the table, we've had our own struggles, we've had our own maybe battles with mental health, and that's wonderful experience for us to be able to bring to empathize. But just recognizing that it will be a very different experience for that person. They will be on their own journey with this. Okay, so having a little think now, we've got a scenario that we wanted to share. Now, this is a hypothetical scenario that we're going to read out, and it's just a chance for you to think about how would you feel in this situation. So we've got a little scenario that we're going to read out for you, and then we're just going to give some pointers on the kind of things that might be interesting for you to think about, to reflect on. So yes, so let's have a little look. So the scenario that we've got is your teen is spending more time in their room with the curtains closed. Their sleep pattern is irregular, with them either not going to sleep until the early hours or they sleep for most of the day. They don't want to eat meals with the rest of the family and they're drifting away from their friends. It's hard to get more than one-word answers out of them and they're short-tempered if you ask them what's wrong. One day you can see that their eyes are puffy and red and you think that they've been crying. You ask what's wrong and they burst into tears, telling you that they feel sad and upset all of the time. They say that everything feels awful and they can't remember the last time that they felt good. Okay, so in that kind of hypothetical scenario, just a couple of little reflections, a little bit of time for you to think about how would you respond in that kind of situation. So if this happened with you and your young person, what would your initial reaction be? How confident would you feel dealing with this type of situation? How would you approach your teen? How would you be feeling if this happened? And how do you think that they might be feeling? And then obviously any other thoughts or reflections that you've got. If you want to have a pause of the video, then by all means take as much time as you need to think about this kind of situation. And as well, if you'd like to feed any of that information back to us, then certainly at the end of the video, all of our contact details are there. So if you have got any kind of thoughts and feelings that you'd like to share with us, then yeah, please do so.
Okay, so now we've talked through that hypothetical scenario and how you think right now you may approach that situation. We're now going to just talk a bit about some ideas around actually approaching and starting that conversation with the young person. We appreciate that can be perhaps a bit of an overwhelming concept or idea to talk about thoughts and feelings and how we go about that. So, just a few tips and a few ideas we wanted to share. So The first thing is picking a time when you feel able to have that type of conversation. So in terms of both physically able, so in terms of is a young person able to engage? So perhaps it may be just considering, is it having a conversation on the way home from somewhere rather than on the way to, say, to school? Perhaps they may already be overwhelmed or thinking about the day ahead at school and what's going to happen there, so may not be able to actually engage in that type of conversation. And also considering, are you likely to be interrupted at all and having the least disruption possible? And also in terms of emotionally, so do you feel able to cope or manage perhaps any potential responses or consequences that may come from having that conversation and what may be shared or disclosed? So both physically and emotionally, picking a time when that feels possible for both you and the young person. Um, but also using normal everyday situations and activities. So we do say, so it's that idea sometimes it's not having kind of a big sit down formal conversation, just making it feel a bit more gentle. It could be as you're in the car to somewhere, or as you're watching a program, or maybe eating something, just generally starting a conversation with them and seeing if you can open that up. It might just be about the favourite music, the favourite hobby they've got at the moment, favourite book, or what's going on with friends, and just generally opening up a general conversation and bringing that around to how are they feeling at the moment. And it's just everyday activities, maybe as you're doing some coloring, anything maybe you do together already. Um, Also, if the young person does say come to you and say they want to share something, for whatever reason you can't talk at that moment because you absolutely appreciate, lots going on in people's lives. It may not always be possible to straight away right then and there to have that sort of conversation, and it's also important not to rush that. Make sure you have all the time that you need, both you and the other person, to have that conversation and go wherever that leads. Um, so if you say you can't talk to them at that point for whatever reason, just making sure that you let them know you've heard that something is going on for them, and agreeing when you'll talk to them again. Maybe will you take them out for tea in the weekend, or go somewhere that evening, or make sure you'll have a bit of time that evening to have a conversation. Just making sure the young person feels heard, and that that their feelings are being acknowledged and they are being valued. It's just not possible at that moment for whatever reason to talk about it as much as you'd want to. It also could be using, again, along that line of everyday situations and activities, it could be using a TV program or film maybe that you're watching or have watched in the past, and taking the example of some characters maybe that are going through a similar situation. That could be used in an indirect way. So say if you notice, say on a program, one of the characters is actually experiencing feeling really low and having a really difficult time. It could be just generally commenting, oh, it looks like that person's really struggling. I hope they kind of seek some support, or I hope they talk to someone, or do this for themselves. Just generally commenting that it's normal, it's okay, and it looks like they're struggling at the moment, and normalising that. Or it could also be done used in a more direct way. So perhaps it could be, oh, that character looks like they're having a really difficult time at the moment. Do you, or are you experiencing anything similar to that? Is that something you're going through at all? So actually using those characters, those examples, to normalise that conversation, and just use it as a starter, as an example of what it could look like and might look like, and what making a plan for what we can do. And finally, just to say, there are also conversation starters from on the website of the organisation Young Minds, and they, again, similar to the idea of everyday situations, and having that general conversation first perhaps might be useful. So it could be, again, what's your favourite band or sing artist at the moment? What's your favourite song or favourite hobby? Just general ideas to just begin a conversation and go building from that. So just but we also appreciate it may be that you use all those kind of tips and strategies, and is still maybe still notice it's quite difficult for the young person to open up, and that's absolutely normal. And we just wanted to discuss perhaps just to raise awareness as to why for anyone, but as well, you know, the young person as well, about why that may be difficult for them and what may be an obstacle. So the first one is stigma and shame or embarrassment. So although mental health is more common to talk about and to hear about nowadays, it's still something that potentially people have that sense of feeling uncomfortable about it when they hear about it, or to talk about it. It feels quite, so it's like taboo subject. So there could be that sense of shame or embarrassment about actually, I am feeling different. Everyone else seems to be coping, feeling okay. Maybe it's just maybe not something that's spoken about in their general kind of network circle, maybe friends or family. And it's not to criticize, it's just something generally that's not spoken about. So it's not something that's usual. So it just feels it's like, yeah, embarrassment about actually, are they, you know, are they the only one experiencing that? I'm experiencing these feelings and maybe I shouldn't be. When it's absolutely normal. And again, building on that, a sense of guilt, actually, I shouldn't be feeling like this. Everyone seems to be coping. My life on paper is great. I've got family, friends, school is fine. I've got hobbies. I shouldn't be feeling this way. Why am I feeling this way? Um, and that sense of guilt, and also potential guilt about actually sharing and feeling as though we're burdening someone by sharing those thoughts and feelings and the impact on them, when actually there's actually no harm at all in talking about thoughts and feelings. But it's absolutely understandable that, you know, people have these barriers, and experience these barriers is absolutely, you know, understandable. Um, there may be fear or uncertainty as well about how someone may respond, or if they may be judged by someone if they do share, and actually take that big step and take that courage to actually share. I am struggling at the moment. This is what I'm experiencing, and just unsure about maybe who to turn to and where to go, but also maybe what the response might be and what might happen from there. And as we said before, potentially we may not know how we feel, and just we're not able to pinpoint. We know something feels a bit strange or a bit different, but we don't know why or what that is. Or maybe we do, but it's we're not sure, or don't have a way at the moment to express that or put that into words, or actually, yeah, express what it is that we're experiencing. And it's just building up inside us. And also, it may be a sense of losing ownership or control of our life. So it could be at the moment as we're experiencing it, it's, you know, within our safe, private, personal bubble. It's just for us, and we feel, yes, it may be a bit overwhelming, but it's safe, it's within me, I'm experiencing it, it's there, it's okay. I can, you know, I can deal with it. And then perhaps if we take that step of sharing it with someone, say if we choose to share it with mom or with dad, with a parent or guardian. And we may have that fear that if we tell one person, what's going to happen then? Is it going to explode into a big kind of experiencing situation that maybe it goes from just a parent knowing, a guardian knowing, to all of a sudden all the staff at school know, and a GP knows, and now other support services are involved, friends know, or other family members know. So it's gone from a safe private bubble to suddenly all these different people are involved, and what that decision has been taken away from us about who is involved and how much other people are involved, and what happens for us. And just that ownership is taken away, and that fear about what happens with that our information.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about what low mood is, and how we might approach having that conversation. So as parents and guardians, we might have had a little inkling that something was going on with our teenager. We've approached that conversation, and now we're starting to think about, okay, well, what do we actually do to deal with this challenge and with this situation? So we've got a couple of little coping strategies and some ideas here that you might want to implement with your teenager. And the first is all around expressing those feelings. Anything that we can do to just get them out is really, really important. So anything kind of creative, anything expressive. So whether it's writing it down, whether it's coloring it, whether it's using Play-Doh or slime or any kind of creative means to just get it out, even if it's singing it in the car, screaming into a pillow, any way that we can just get those feelings out. And sometimes writing it down or journaling it can be a really, really good way of just exploring within ourselves what we're experiencing right now. If we can take away that pressure of finding the right words, then we can just scribble anything down. And if the word is not completely right, if it doesn't fully reflect how we feel, it doesn't matter. It's just a little experiment to just get those words down on paper. Yeah, like we said here, the aim is to have a way to just express those thoughts and feelings. When it comes to kind of specifically writing or journaling, it can be really important as well to have a conversation with your teenager around what do you want to do with that piece of paper once you finish writing it down. Because sometimes for teenagers, there can be a really big fear of, if I write all this down, what happens if mum or dad finds it and reads it? So just being really honest and having that conversation, even before they put pen to paper, and saying, do you want me to read it? Would it be helpful for you if I had a little read afterwards? Or do you want to keep it private? Do you want to keep it for the future so that you can reflect back on it in a couple of weeks or a couple of days and see if things have changed? Sometimes people find it very cathartic and really cleansing to get rid of the paper after they've kind of scribbled down their thoughts and feelings, either by putting it in the shredder or the bin, or sometimes people will even put it in like a big bucket of water to kind of get rid of the words off the page. But just having that conversation so that there isn't that little fear ticking around in the back of their head thinking, oh gosh, if I write this down, it's going to be really scary if somebody else finds it. So just having a really open conversation around that. This little page here that we've done about foundations. So when Emma and I are working with people and we're trying to get a bigger picture of what's going on for people at the moment, these are the kind of things that we will ask how they're going. So we will ask them about their foundations. And that includes kind of eating, sleeping, exercise, their use of social media, what's their routine like, and how are they connecting with other people. So when it comes to that eating, and we're not expecting, especially for teenagers, to have the most healthy diets in the world. Snacks here and there and a little bit of junk food is all part of being a teenager, I think. But just recognizing, how do you feel about your eating habits at the minute? Is eating a difficult topic for you? Is that something that you find really hard? And so just having that conversation around, okay, so what's your eating habit like at the minute? We'll also ask when we're working with teenagers, how are you sleeping? Like we were saying earlier, are you napping a lot? Are you awake until the early hours? How do you feel during the day? Do you feel like you're just trying to make it to bedtime because you're so exhausted? Do you find yourself nodding off in class? Do you find yourself nodding off on the bus? So just having those kind of conversations just to see, is your sleep pattern working for you at the minute? Because any sense of exhaustion, physical exhaustion, can really, really exacerbate those signs and symptoms of low mood. So sleep can be a really big one. We'll check in, like we said, with people's sense of exercise and movement. And again, we're not expecting people to be going out and running marathons, but just wanting to find out, is there some sense of movement during the day and the week? Or is it very much on the sofa, lying in bed all the time, really stagnant in their lives? Even if it's just a case of taking the dog for a walk or, going down to the shops, just so we know there's some sense of movement happening in their week. We'll ask people about their use of social media. Are they happy with it? Do they feel that it's serving them? If they can't go on social media for a while for whatever reason, what does that bring up for them? Do they feel comfortable? Do they feel quite antsy or maybe a bit anxious if they can't get on social media? How do they feel when they're on it? Do they feel like, oh, this is a really nice place to be? It's making me feel good. I can watch some nice videos. I can chat to people. Or is it kind of becoming quite a stressful thing for them to do? And how do they feel afterwards when they come off social media? Has it been a nourishing thing to do, or has it really, really drained them? We'll also ask about people's sense of routine. Now, everybody has their own individual approaches to routine. Some people really thrive on it. They love to know exactly what time things are going to be happening, and they want a very set routine every day. Other people are a lot more kind of free and breezy with things, and they might do things different every day. And that's really individual, and that'll be, different for absolutely everybody. But what we tend to find is if we are at the opposite ends of the scale where things are really, really regimented every day, and any break in routine can really pull the rug out from beneath people, that can be maybe an indicator that things are a little bit difficult for people. And the opposite can be true as well. So if somebody has no sense of routine, they haven't got any ideas of what time they're going to get up or what time they're going to be going to places, that can be quite chaotic for people, and it can make you feel really destabilized. So we will ask, what's your day-to-day routine like? Do you tend to do the same things every day? Are you happy with your sense of routine? And finally, we'll ask about how they're connecting with other people. So again, as we said earlier, we're not expecting people to be, going out to parties every night or anything like that. But have they got people in their life who they can talk to if they're having a difficult day? We don't expect huge amounts of, people in their friendship circles, but even just one or two close people that they can turn to. Whether that's friends or family, are they connecting with people, or are they really isolated? Are they spending a lot of time on their own in their bedrooms? And that can really tie into all of these other foundations as well. So if somebody is spending a lot of time by themselves in their bedroom, their sleep routine might be out because they might just be napping because they're just lying on the bed all the time. They might not be eating meals with their family. They might not be eating set meals as such. They might just be snacking during the day. So we do find that all of these foundations do tend to be linked to one another. So like I said earlier, when Emma and I are getting to know a teenager, these are the kind of things that we'll ask them about, because it gives us a really good picture of how that person is holding up at the minute. How are they doing? What does their life look like? So it might be worthwhile, if you think that your teenager is struggling, sitting down with them and running through these different steps and just saying, okay, some of them look really good at the minute. Oh, but our sense of routine is really not working for us at the minute. Okay, let's address that. Let's have a think about that one. As well, when we are, working with people who might be struggling with low mood and depression, one of the things that we find that is really, really difficult about low mood is that it strips us of any sense of motivation. So when we are thinking about motivation, we sometimes think of it almost as like this spark that just spontaneously happens, like, oh, I'm just going to go and do a bike ride today. But the problem that happens with low mood is that because it takes away that sense of motivation, we're never going to get that spark of, oh, I'm going to go and do this thing now. So what normally happens with a kind of cycle of motivation is we would have that spark, we would have that moment of, I'm going to go and do this thing. So we'd have that here, we would go and do it. We would get the positive feeling and the reinforcement from having done that. And then that would kickstart the cycle to keep going around and around. But when we're suffering with low mood and depression, if we wait for that very first initial spark of motivation to happen, we're probably going to be waiting for a very, very long time. So we have to have a think about other ways of kickstarting that cycle of motivation. And sometimes it can come down to just setting a really, really small goal. So it might be, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go and take the dog for a walk. Recognizing that when that moment comes, I'm probably not going to feel like it. It's probably going to be really difficult to get up and to get moving. Recognizing that, I'm recommitting to, even though I'm not going to feel like it, I'm committed to doing this thing. Now, the important thing here is picking a goal that that young person is going to feel invested in. If somebody said to me, tomorrow you're going to go swimming and you're not going to feel like it when the time comes, but you're going to be really committed and you're going to do it, I know I'm not going to do that because I don't enjoy swimming. I'm not emotionally invested in it. But if I pick something that I truly care about, like taking my dog for a walk, I know that when the moment comes, even if it feels really hard, I'm going to be way more likely to do it because I'm emotionally invested in it. So starting off that cycle by picking something that's really personal, that we are going to feel, okay, it's going to be difficult, but I'm going to do this because I'm really committed to it. Once we've made that commitment, doing the activity, getting that boost in confidence, enjoying it, and getting the motivation to keep doing it. And again, we can see that cycle starting to go around. Sometimes you might come across this cycle be called behavioral activation. That's a word that you might come across kind of if you're looking into things like low mood and different coping strategies. So yeah, behavioral activation basically means that moment of setting that commitment, picking a goal that's going to work for you, recognizing that it might be hard when the moment comes, but recommitting to making that first little step in doing the activity and then getting all of those benefits that are going to keep the cycle going. But as well, recognizing that can be really, really difficult when we're in those depths of low mood. Okay, something else that we tend to find when people are struggling with low mood and depression is that we can have a really critical inner voice, and we can find it really hard to say nice things and to feel nice things towards ourselves. So just recognizing that sometimes it can be easier to be kinder to strangers than it is to ourselves, and to give advice to other people rather than to take it. What's that saying? Do as I say, not as I do. You know, that can really kind of come to the forefront when we're struggling with low mood. So just asking ourselves, you know, what would you suggest to someone else in a similar situation if you had a best friend and they were feeling like they had no motivation, they were pulling away from their friends and family, they're really, really struggling. What would you say to them? And then just turning it around and thinking, okay, I wonder if I can take that back onto myself. A nice little activity that we sometimes do with teenagers is called 5 Things. And this can be a nice little reflection activity, just to put a little bit of a spotlight on how hard it can be to say nice things and to recognize our own strengths. So yeah, it can be really hard to say nice things about ourselves. So when we do this activity, we'll ask the teenager to pick someone in their life who they think is really cool and, you know, is really important and that they really care about. And then we'll ask them, okay, tell me 5 really nice things about that person. What makes them cool? What makes them awesome? And chances are they're going to be able to reel off all these amazing things about this other person. When they get to the end of that, we'll then say, okay, tell me 5 really cool things about you. What makes you amazing? What's special about you? What are your strengths? And what we tend to find is that that second part is really, really difficult. It's easy to say nice things about other people because we can see other people's strengths so much easier. But when we turn that spotlight inwards, it can be really hard to say nice things about ourselves. So when we're doing this activity, we're not trying to trip anybody up, or we're not trying to give anybody a jolt of like, oh, I can't think of anything nice to say. We're just trying to, like we say, put a spotlight on how difficult it can be to be nice to ourselves sometimes. So yeah, that can be a nice little activity to do just to help people to recognize, like, I'm really hard on myself sometimes. And doing that activity is a really nice way of just bringing that into the forefront.
Oh, excuse me. So, okay, just to continue the positive self-talk idea. So another example of something that we talk about is something called like positive affirmations. So really quite short, brief, quick phrases that someone can call upon and repeat to themselves just to give them that sense of boosting motivation or confidence. And with any of the strategies, we always say it can take a lot of time and practice for them to take an effect. And sometimes it's practicing it just so it becomes habit and we can call upon it really quickly. So some ideas of an affirmation could be something like, I am a really good person. And it could be you do this together with the young person. It could be something you do discuss some examples with them maybe, and they agree on themselves, and that's something they tell themselves maybe first thing in the morning or before they go to bed. I'm a really good person. Or it could be something, if I believe it, I can achieve it. That's something I can achieve it. And I am beautiful just the way I am. Or I don't feel great at the moment. Things don't feel great, but I know the feeling will pass. Or it could be something as such as I'm only human. I'm doing the best I can. All I can do is my best. And just that acknowledgement is it's okay to feel down sometimes. It's absolutely normal. And also another step with this, it can be, although I appreciate it can be really difficult, one important thing can also be actually just identifying and actually recognizing the thoughts that we're having and those negative thoughts that come up. And one thing could be completing like a diary or a table, such as is on the screen. And again, that could be something you do together or the young person does themselves. Just to highlight to the young person, really, actually, this is actually what they are thinking about themselves, because sometimes that can be a bit of a shock. We might not realize actually what we are saying. So just as an example, so it could be, so it's looking at what the situation was, where were you, what was happening when the thought occurred, what was your reaction to that situation, and also what was it, what was the belief that came up, what was the thought and the belief. So as an example, it could be, say, a friend invited them to the cinema, but their reaction was they said they were busy, even though actually they weren't. They were just at home. They weren't busy really. This is because they actually thought that they would embarrass themselves. So they would spill the drink, spill the snacks, make a mess, and people would they would just embarrass themselves and people would laugh at them or judge them. So it's just the idea of highlighting those and identifying those thoughts that are coming up. And the next step, again, this is something that you could do together with them, is actually challenging those thoughts. So just thinking of maybe what are there any times in the past, maybe like a difficult situation that you got through, maybe it's a difficult conversation you had to have, maybe it was, I don't know, a school exam that you're worried about, but you got through it, you got through that difficult time. And just as a reminder that you can and have got through difficult times in the past, it is possible, it will pass. And also it could be a quick reminder of what did I use any strategies? How did I cope or get through that situation? What did I do? Can that same thing, same strategy be used in this situation now, in the present? Can it be carried over to this time now? So just looking at identifying and challenging those thoughts. Again, it could be something you do together. And again, sometimes it could be you complete a diary, it could be something you do together at the end of the day, or it could be something actually you just discuss together and just talk about together at some point. So again, something that can help with challenging those thoughts is a table like on the screen. So just noting what those negative thoughts, we sometimes call it like the inner critic. So it could be what is the inner critic saying? What is that thought? So it could be I will embarrass myself. And then considering the reasons why that inner critic is wrong. So it could be, I've gone out with friends and family many times before and nothing went wrong. Yeah, maybe once something did, but generally, overall, nothing really went wrong. It's actually okay. The likelihood that something will happen is quite low. So just getting us to pause and reflect on actually what is the likelihood, how helpful is it to have this thought right now and just challenging it. I mean, another idea sometimes is we ask the young person, they could imagine that the negative thoughts and the critical thoughts are coming from a little person, figure, monster on the shoulder. And it's this figure that's saying all these negative thoughts. And it might be in our head or out loud. We just say, just stop. I'm not listening to you right now. Just stop. I'm just not paying attention. I don't need to hear that. And maybe even brushing it, knocking it off the shoulder. It's not there. You don't need to pay attention to it. Just as an alternative way sometimes to think about or process those thoughts and feelings. It's just we appreciate that sometimes it's so easy to be overwhelmed and consumed by those negative thoughts and compare ourselves to others, and the volume on those critical thoughts can be really, really loud sometimes. And we're just trying to give some ideas of how we can, if not necessarily completely turning it on mute and turning it off completely, just somehow turning that volume down a little bit on those thoughts, and just if we can reduce it somehow, reducing that pressure and that stress of those negative thoughts. So another step, because we appreciate also, it can be really difficult to actually think about and identify what we would like our life to look like and what we want to happen with the support, or just generally, what do we want to change or to happen? So there is something called the miracle question, and that can help us, encourage us to have the conversation and to reflect on this and to consider, what do we want? So the idea is we ask that question. So if we had a magic wand, we had some powers, and those powers in that wand would take all the challenges, all the difficulties, all the obstacles, thoughts and feelings, all of that would be taken away. If that was to happen, that was all taken away, what would be different? What would be different for you if that was to happen? How would you think differently? What thoughts would change? Would they change? How would they change? How would you feel differently emotionally? Would that feel any different for you? And also, how would you behave differently? Maybe respond to those situations. How would you behave if all the challenges were to be taken away? And sometimes just thinking about those questions can just help us to then consider, shape and tailor actually the next steps. If you're thinking about a plan as to where you go from that conversation, it can help us sometimes just to pinpoint maybe some potential goals or needs of the young person, and maybe that can help to then think about, okay, with those goals we can make a plan as to support we access or what we do, who we speak to, and we can use that as a starting point. So another thing also is looking at achievement, closeness and enjoyment. So this is used to help us actually consider and reflect upon what brings us joy and happiness, and just help us to understand that a bit more, because it can be so easy to live life on autopilot. We just do what we need to do, we get through days and we don't notice actually our achievements, and maybe if we are enjoying something, we just feel maybe normal and we're just getting through it. So it helps us and encourages us to consider what we do and don't enjoy. And then also, as a further step, consider, can we increase the things we enjoy in our life or give ourselves that sense of achievement? And is there any way to reduce those things that maybe make us feel a bit overwhelmed or stressed? Maybe so looking at achievement, so a sense of reward or enjoyment or pleasure from something. Sense of closeness. If you did that activity with someone, and absolutely you may not do it, that's absolutely okay. But if you did that help encourage any sense of connection with someone or interaction, relationship? What did that feel like completing that activity with someone? And also enjoyment. So or if not enjoyment, a sense of positive emotion. Did that activity bring about any pleasure and joy in completing that and doing it? And also, I mean, we appreciate that we don't want to add any extra stress or pressure within the strategies, and we don't want to ask to make massive changes or anything out of the ordinary to do something like this. It could just be something as like you making a meal with someone, or baking a cake, or maybe you doing some colouring or craft, or maybe you've gone on a walk, or walking the dog. It's not necessarily anything out of the ordinary, everyday things you're doing, just considering how that feels for you. Because sometimes we feel a sense of dread for something, but actually it turns out it's not as bad as we thought it was going to be. We actually enjoyed it more than we thought. And we appreciate that this can be a lot more difficult to consider if someone is feeling low. So that's why sometimes just taking that pause to consider, actually take that time to consider it, can be really important. And again, it can be something that take a lot of time and practice, and it can be something that's done together or individually by the person.
Okay, so we're going to look now at some different relaxation strategies. So what we tend to find is that when people are struggling with their mental health, there's lots of tension, so they might hold themselves really tense, lots of headaches, lots of aches and pains because we're just really, really tense all of the time. And B, we tend to find that people get very stuck in their minds, and we might, because we're so stuck in our minds, we might feel a bit disconnected from the here and now and what's actually happening in this moment because we're so stuck up here. So when we're working with teenagers, we will teach them some different calming, breathing, relaxation strategies, and also some grounding techniques as well to help turn down the volume in our minds and reconnect right here. Where am I? What's happening in this space right now? So we're going to run through some of those strategies that we normally teach our teenagers that we work through. So in the description box for this video, there's a link to a demonstration for this breathing technique. So you can find that, you can go and watch that whenever you need to. But this breathing technique basically involves kind of holding your hand up, placing the finger from your other hand at the bottom of your thumb, and then breathing in and out as we trace the shape of our fingers. So breathing in to the top of our thumb, and breathing out, breathing in and out, and tracing our fingers as we're breathing in and out. And this is a really, really nice relaxation technique because not only are you going to get 5 really nice calming breaths, but that physical touch on our hands can be really soothing and really comforting for people as well. I know a lot of teenagers who will do this in class, and they can kind of keep their hand under the table and like quietly be doing this, and nobody ever needs to be any the wiser. So this is one that we teach pretty much all of the teenagers that we work with, and it's such a lovely little technique. We'll also teach something called square or box breathing, where we'll invite teenagers to imagine a square, and then kind of imagine popping their finger at the bottom of the square, breathing in to the count of 4, holding it for the count of 4, breathing out for 4, and holding it for 4, and breathing in that square shape and going around and around as many times as they need to before they start to feel like they're relaxing, calming down a little bit. You can trace your finger as you're doing it. You can trace it on your hand. Some people will use their phone and just kind of trace the outline of their phone as they're breathing in and out. And again, this is a really, really nice way of just calming down our breathing, especially when we're feeling stressed or anxious and we can feel that our heart rate is starting to increase a little bit. Just focusing on the breath, trying to bring it back down again. Another really nice breathing technique that we'll teach is called alternate nostril breathing. And this is an especially good one for bedtime because it can help you to get off into a really good night's sleep. And again, in the description box, there's a link to a demonstration video. But this one involves taking your thumb and your forefinger and covering alternate sides of your nose as you breathe in and out. And the pattern of breathing that we're looking for is kind of like an upside down V. So we want to breathe in on this side, switch, and breathe out. Breathe in again on that side, switch, and breathe out. So like I said, there's a demonstration video for you to watch that kind of goes into it in a little bit more detail, but this is a really lovely one for bedtime.
Okay, so as mentioned before, there is something called grounding techniques, and this is based on the idea, again, how that sense of living on autopilot and just not having that sense of awareness about who and what's around us. So just sometimes encouraging us to just take a pause and pay attention to our senses. So sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell, and just considering maybe if you're walking somewhere, how does the ground feel beneath our feet? If we're having a warm drink, is there any texture on the cup? Any reflection on the surface of the liquid, or is it hot or cold, heavy in our hands? Does it taste the same as it smells? Everyday things, paying attention to those senses and our surroundings, just giving ourselves a bit of a pause. Another idea, again, as mentioned before, that idea when we're feeling, sometimes if we're feeling stressed and anxious, we can hold our bodies in a really tense way, and we might not even realise that we're doing that. And this idea is muscle relaxation. So it's going through different areas of your body, deliberately tensing them, but not too hard, not for too long, just a few seconds, and then paying attention to how that feels, that difference of when it's been deliberately tense, your body's deliberately tense, to then releasing that and relaxing that part of the body. Maybe even imagining throwing away that tension. So it might be putting your hands into fists, say for 10 seconds, again, not too hard, not too long. Then just letting your hand relax and letting that go. Maybe imagine pulling those worries out, throwing it away. How does that feel any different if when it's deliberately tense and when it's relaxed? What does that feel like? Or it could be putting your shoulders up towards your ears and holding that, or putting your face into a frown. Just again, that idea of going through different areas of your body, deliberately tensing it slightly for a few seconds, and then releasing that tension. And what does that feel like? And finally, there's the idea of a balloon. So although breathing may sound like something that's really simple, we just breathe, we just do it every day, it's what we do. Sometimes though, it is just that simple thing that can be useful and helpful and gives us that motivation. It's something every day that we use, it's not anything kind of stressful, out of the ordinary or big or scary. It's something we do every day that we can use to try and help. And sometimes having something we picture and imagine can help us with that process. So with this exercise, it's the idea of a balloon. So we imagine that our tummy, is a balloon. Each time we take a deep inhale, a deep breath in, that balloon inflates and gets bigger. And then each time we take a deep exhale, we breathe out, that balloon deflates and gets smaller. So it's focusing on the movement of your stomach and that balloon getting bigger and smaller as we're taking deep breaths in and out. And again, do these for as long as you feel you need to until you feel ready to go back to the situation wherever you are.
Okay, so some little extra tips now on kind of how to support your teenager if they're having a difficult time with low mood and depression. So first and foremost, just being and having an open door of communication and being there for them when they need it. Sometimes as parents, we might have the habit to fall into that solution mindset of like, this is a problem, how do we fix it? And certainly there is a time and a place for thinking about solutions and ways forward and how can we deal with this situation. But sometimes, especially in those early stages, we just need someone to be there with us. Sometimes not even speaking, just being there, it's comforting, spending time together, and just like we say, that open door of communication. And as well as parents, sometimes we can assume that our children, we know that we love them, that we're there for them no matter what. But sometimes we just need to hear it as well. So just reassuring them that you're there for them, that however they want to deal with this situation, you're on board with it. Being a listening ear as well. So it's okay if you don't have the answers. I'm a firm believer that being honest with teenagers and being honest with our children and saying, oh, do you know what? I don't think I know the answer to that. But let's have a look at it together. Why don't we go on the computer together and we can have watch some videos and try and learn more about this together. I think it really builds trust if we can say to our teenagers, I don't know all the answers, but I'm here for you. We're in this together. We're on the same side of the same team here. Asking them as well how they want to move forward. How do they want you to approach things? Do you want me to check in with you tomorrow or at the weekend? Or do you want to come and talk to me when you're ready? How do you want to do this? So yeah, thinking about different ways of communicating as well. Do you want to send me voice notes? Do you want to send me WhatsApp messages? Really putting them in the driving seat in terms of how they want things to work moving forward. Thinking back to what we were saying before, that's fear of losing control can be a real barrier to people opening up. So just acknowledging that and just saying, I know that you might be feeling frightened right now, that this is all getting taken out of your hands, but I want to make sure that you're in control here. What can we do to make sure that I'm supporting you in the best way that you want me to? And as well, maybe speaking to them about meeting with their GP. The GP is the best source of support and referrals, especially if something like a referral to an external agency, maybe something like CAMS perhaps, if that is something that might happen in the future that's on the horizon, we would always recommend getting that done as soon as possible, just so that you can start chipping away at that wait time. Not waiting until the very kind of crisis moment before we speak to the GP, getting in with them as soon as your teenager feels ready. We would always recommend talking to your teenager about who their backup team is. So that's basically just means who's in their life. If you are at work or you have got other stuff and for whatever reason you're not able to talk to them in that moment, it happens to the best of us. Letting them know, okay, I can't speak to you this afternoon because I'm in a meeting at work. However, so and so will be there instead. You can reach out to Auntie whoever. So just making sure that they know who's in their wider support network, thinking about external organisations as well if they don't want to or if they can't turn to family and friends. So thinking about all of those different organisations that are out there. We have got some links later on in the presentation that we can tell you about some of the brilliant organisations that are out there. As well, we would always recommend taking an interest in all aspects of their life, not making every conversation about their mental health. Sometimes we find that when we open up about our mental health and when we tell people that we're struggling, one of the fears that we have is that it becomes a thing and it's the only thing that anybody ever wants to talk to us about anymore. And it can feel like it takes over so much of our life and so much of our identity. So yes, having those conversations around their mental health and addressing it, but also, life, there are other aspects of people's lives. What music are you listening to? What did you watch on TV last night? Have you watched anything funny on YouTube lately? Just having those general conversations about who they are and seeing it as part of the bigger picture of their life. It's always possible as well to check in with school to see if there have been any changes in behaviour and to see if there's any additional support that school can offer as well. And if needs be, there is external support, so things like talking therapies, maybe school-based counselling, organisations such as ourselves, the kind of support that we can provide for teenagers. And there might also be an option for medication as well, which would be, again, one of those things that you would want to be speaking to your GP about.
Okay, so we've spoken a lot about how to support a teen and your teen, but also we want to acknowledge the big part that you all play in this and how you may be feeling as well, and how important it is that you have that space and support yourself as well within this journey. So some ideas of supporting yourself, such as self-care, making sure at some point in the day you have it all week, you have that bit of time for you, maybe something you enjoy, maybe speaking to someone, even if maybe it's just sitting there relaxing, watching something you enjoy, or having a warm drink. Just having that bit of pause time, bit of space for you at some point in the day, even if it's just 15 minutes, just having something to eat, some lunch, having that bit of time for you, a bit of break, a bit of a break. It could also be seeking support from organisations yourself, whether it's individuals, whether it's us or another organisation, and maybe it's counselling, just that idea of individual support for yourself from an organisation as well. Because all the things that we've spoken about today and strategies can be applied to you and you can use as well. It's not just for the young person, you can also take that away for yourself as well. And in terms of speaking to other people, it could be other people you speak to, such as maybe family or friends, work colleagues, maybe it's staff at the school. And speaking to your GP about if you feel that you are struggling with mental health at all, and having that conversation with them is what you want to happen or what's happening at the moment. And one big thing as well is self-kindness, just giving ourselves that space. And it's absolutely understandable if right now what's happening is making you feel a bit anxious or a bit distressed. It's absolutely understandable. And it's already, imagine in fact you made a big step of watching this webinar, searching for the information and wanting to be there for your young person and seeking information. It's such a big step that you've all taken, and we really do thank you all for taking the time to watch this and taking part in this webinar and information session. And just giving ourselves that permission and acceptance that it's however we're feeling is okay. It's okay if we are feeling down or overwhelmed. It's absolutely okay. It's understandable. And we're doing the best, as we said with a positive affirmation, we're only human, we're doing the best we can, and that's all we can ever do.
Okay, so we've mentioned a couple of other organisations that you might want to turn to. And one of the ones that we would really recommend is Young Minds. They're a fantastic organisation. Like we said earlier, they've got some brilliant conversation starters on there. So if you're thinking, how do I even approach this conversation with my teenager? They've got some nice little pointers on there that you might want to have a look at. All of these websites are in the description box below, so you can click directly on them and it'll take you straight to the websites. Young Minds also has a parent helpline, which is available Monday to Friday, 9:30 till 4 p.m. And that's a fantastic resource to use. There's also the Charlie Waller Trust, which is an online parent support network. And that's just a nice opportunity to meet other parents who might be going through similar situations. Childline is also available, as is an app called Couth. And this is a really nice app that you can download onto your teenager's website. And it's full of kind of message boards, videos that they can watch, nice little ways that they can connect with other teenagers as well. So it's just a really nice safe space. So yeah, Couth might be a nice app to have a little think about.
Okay, just to finish with next steps. So just to say, if you do need or think that immediate or crisis support is needed right now, then please contact one of the services on the screen. So emergency services 999, also helplines such as Samaritans, who are open 24/7 all year round. And there is also Papyrus, which is specifically for young people, but parents can also contact them as well if you are, or guardians can contact as well if you are concerned about a young person. Just helplines that you can contact if you just need to speak to someone, or just for advice, just someone to listen, or maybe for advice. And finally, thank you all so much for watching and for taking part. We really appreciate your time. If you do feel like you would want any further information about anything that's been discussed, or maybe about the support we offer, then please just get in touch with Common Mind and with us, with the information on the screen, telephone number and email address, and feel free to search us online and look at our website, and all the information is on there as well. So yes, diolch, and thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Bye
Thanks,
now.
everyone. Bye.